Hello everybody, thank you for joining me for another Alfred Hitchcock Presents review. Today we are talking about Season 4, Episode 7, Man with a Problem, starring Gary Merrill, Elizabeth Montgomery, and Peter Mark Richman. So this is definitely one of the more well-known Season 4 episodes from what I can tell after doing a bit of research. And I do think this is a series classic. I do have a few small issues with this episode, but overall, I definitely can see why this is a well-known episode, and I think it's really, really good. And as always, as I go through the episode, there will be spoilers. So this episode starts with Alfred Hitchcock and a skeleton, and the skeleton is exercising, and that's all I'll say about that. Very strange opening, as usual. So we start the actual episode with a man on top of a building, a hotel building. His name is Carl, and it looks like he's not doing too well and that he might decide to jump off of it. It also starts to draw a crowd, as you can imagine, more and more as the episode goes, which I thought was interesting. So then we get a flashback of this man Carl to find out what's going on. It turns out his wife, named Karen, wants to leave him for another man. Now, Carl's very reluctant and skeptical of this other man, and he kind of pleads with her, but she wants a divorce, and she wants to run away with this other guy. So then we go back to the present, and the police come by, and there's this officer whose name we cleverly don't know right now. We won't find that out till later in the episode, and there's a reason for that. And he's basically trying to talk Carl off the ledge. He offers him a cigarette, which I guess is supposed to help. Sure, why not? And he also tells this man it might affect his promotion. He might not get it if Carl jumps. I thought that was kind of a strange way to try and talk a guy down, but whatever, you just got to go with it. I guess it's as good as anything else. So Carl seems to be starting to trust this guy a little bit until he sees basically the emergency unit come, and he starts freaking out again and threatens to jump. He says, if you don't get rid of these people, I'm going to do it. I'm going to jump. So the officer says, okay, I'll do my best to get rid of them. And in the meantime, people on the streets are chanting jump, jump, jump over and over. Yes, really? Thought that was a little strange, but I guess these people in the street are just here to entertain us throughout the episode. So at this point, we go to a new scene, and a lieutenant becomes involved in this, and he seems to actually not necessarily get along all that well with this other officer who's still unnamed. But basically, the lieutenant tries his own methods, and it doesn't work. Carl still will not come down. So we get another flashback where we learn more. Carl at this point is practically begging his wife, Karen, not to leave him. But it just seems like there's nothing he can do to convince her she's going to leave. So after a few more scenes, back with the police, we get another scene, and Carl finds that his wife, Karen, is gone. It looks like basically she's done herself in because she feels guilty. She leaves him a note saying he was right about this other guy, Steve, and that she can't bear to cause him any more pain. So now we know the whole story and why Carl is out here on the ledge. So now the police are talking to a doctor, I think a psychiatrist, about what to do. They're still at a loss. Basically, the original officer, who we still don't know exactly who he is, says, I was making a little bit of progress. I did better than anyone else, so let me talk to him again. Maybe I can get him to come down. So the lieutenant reluctantly agrees, not really having a better idea at this point. So eventually it seems like this officer is able to calm Carl down enough where they decide to try this plan, which I thought was a bad idea from the beginning. They basically lower a rope that Carl can't really reach, so he asks this officer to help him with it. So the officer reluctantly comes out on the ledge, and it looks like he almost falls himself a couple times. And he wraps this rope, kind of like a lasso, around Carl. And then we learn basically everything. So we learn that this was all a setup by Carl. At least this is how I interpret it. He was never really going to jump. We find out that this officer's name is Steve, and that he is the guy that was going to run away, or did run away, with Carl's wife, Karen, before breaking it off with her. So basically, Carl blames this guy, Steve, for everything, and he pushes Steve off the building. And we get the end with Alfred Hitchcock and a skeleton once again. So this was a great twist, obviously, that Carl was never really going to jump. The man with a problem was actually Steve, because Carl found out what he was up to. Now, this episode was very well acted and suspenseful, and I enjoyed it very much. I do have a couple issues with this episode, though. First of all, either I'm getting smarter or this twist was really easy to figure out. I figured out pretty much from the first time we saw the officer and they didn't say his name that this was going to be Steve and that Carl was kind of up to something. My second issue with this episode is that this seems like a plan that may or may not work. Like, what if Carl goes out there and they send a different officer? Like, what if the lieutenant is the first one to come and Steve never even comes by? I guess Carl would have just brought himself back in, but it just seems like kind of an elaborate plan that worked out perfectly. But it's not really a negative. It's just kind of something you got to go with. But this was still an excellent episode, very suspenseful, a great twist for the time. I thought the street crowd, even though their behavior was kind of weird, added a lot to the episode. You know, and it's a very well-directed and well-paced episode as well. So I'm going to give Man with a Problem a 4.5 out of 5. Like I said, if the twist was maybe hidden a little bit better, this might have been a perfect episode. But as it is, this is one of the best Alfred Hitchcock Presents episodes I have seen, and I highly recommend it. So, 4.5 out of 5 for Man with a Problem. As always, thanks for watching.